So, Supernatural has always been kind of a weird show. The original idea centered around two brothers in their muscle car, driving around, fighting monsters, and looking for their dad. And it was supposed to be scary, but it was also supposed to highlight American lore, like scarecrows and hookmen and, Paris Hilton. And it was supposed to have this very specific backroads, desaturated Americana feel. Like, these were good American boys fighting bad American monsters. It was a hero's journey across America, the X-Files along Route 66. And then by the time it made it to the big screen, a much larger plot had been added. A Dante-level Bible fan fiction with angels, demons, and the devil. To me, at least, it always felt like it existed in kind of a cultural gray area, because on the one hand, it was obviously for the bros, and it was about bro interests like shotguns, muscle cars, hitting on chicks, but also I can almost see in my mind's eye the pitch meeting in Studio City with executives sitting around a table being like, listen, man, we're gonna need some pretty faces to sell this show. Jensen Ackles, who plays older brother Dean, had been on several soap operas, and Jared Padalecki, who plays Sam, the fresh-faced, geeky younger brother, had just come off a run as playing a hunky love interest on chick show Gilmore Girls. And Supernatural actually aired right after Gilmore Girls for the entirety of its first season. To me, it really seems like it was a show designed for girlfriends to leave on and boyfriends to decide they liked. You know, it's like they just got finished watching Gilmore Girls, the girl goes to the bathroom because, you know, ladies always gotta pee, and then by the time she comes out, her boyfriend is like, babe, I actually really like this, because it's for me, and I love stuff for me. Because it was a show about men and men's interests. And since it was so focused on these literally just two male leads, it ended up having a lot to say about male friendship, how trauma manifests in men, male grief. And all of this made Sam and Dean two very well-written, well-rounded characters that audiences could really connect to. And you know, just like a lot of pretty faces that a lot of people connect to, maybe someone has the crazy idea to start writing fanfiction about them. And so the chick audience of the show was born. And I know you are all wondering, what was your connection to the show? Was it the muscle car and the big shotguns? Or was it this floppy-haired, doughy-eyed Stanford student with a perfect LSAT score? Supernatural was one of those shows that I absolutely tore through when I was younger. And I think I got into it at such a great time because I, in my opinion, was watching the good episodes, the first few seasons, and then I would go online and see a bunch of crazy screen grabs from the insane fan service that was airing around like season 8, 9, 10.
Oh my god. These guys are psychopaths.
So I was obsessed with the show as it was, and I felt like I had so much to look forward to. And I think Supernatural also cultivated a very special kind of relationship with its fans. Because the goofier it got and the longer it went on, the more it really leaned into fan service. They go out into the world and see their lives as the real Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki. They meet cosplayers of themselves. They even get zapped into a Scooby-Doo episode at one point. Like, this shit was fully unhinged. And listen, for all my roasting, those are still the episodes that I go back to the most. Mainly because they're funnier and I don't have to remember all the like random Bible people that were relevant in that season. I can just go back and enjoy my 45 minutes and get out of there. It was a show that literally wrote its own fans into the show. And some of these portrayals are quite endearing, but with some I couldn't help feeling a little roasted. So the whole show, Dean calls Sam a nerd. But let's be honest, Sam, I've come to believe, is really not a nerd. He is just a normie who's an introvert and good at standardized tests. But since the brothers run across all types of people in their travels, although mostly white and middle class because Hollywood sure does like to write what it knows. For the first maybe like 10 years of the show, the brothers always kind of like side-eye each other when they come across people who are like really presented as nerdy. Early on, they have a run-in with these two very explicitly loser-coded guys who are these two fake ghost hunters and they are trying to make their own show. They serve as comic relief because of all the stupid stuff they say, but also as a foil for Sam and Dean, who are the real ghost ghost hunters. And it is painfully clear that the writers wanted to portray these two guys as total man-children, just by the way they dress and talk.
You are a ghost hunter, okay?
I know, but Ed, I've never actually seen a real ghost before. Like a real ghost. It's like an apparition.
This stuff right here, this is our ticket to the big time. Fame, money, sex. With girls, okay? Be brave. Okay, WWBD. What would Buffy do? Huh? What would Buffy do?
I actually always thought that line was a little weird, because it's like they're making fun of people who watch Buffy, but maybe they don't realize that the Buffy audience and the Supernatural audience, especially in those early years, 2005, 2006, is kind of a circle. But I should note that these two characters suck, but not because they are nerds. They are careless, and they don't listen to reason, and they get people hurt, but that really has nothing to do with the fact that they are geeky. And then, enter Becky. She comes into the picture because there is this writer called Chuck who was having visions of Sam and Dean and decided to turn it into books. And he is later revealed to be a prophet and then also God, but that's besides the point. Chuck and his novels have a small but very dedicated fan base, and Becky is his #1 fan, and by extension also Sam's #1 fan. She doesn't really seem to have any friends. She writes Sam and Dean /fiction, and she immediately believes the whole thing is real when she meets Chuck, even though she literally admits that that would be crazy.
I need you to get a message to Sam and Dean. Okay?
Look, Mr. Edlin, yes, I'm a fan, but I really don't appreciate being mocked. I know that Supernatural is just a book, okay? I know the difference between fantasy and reality.
Becky, it's all real.
I knew it!
She is in love with Sam, but is also very off-putting to him, showing literally no respect for his personal space.
Is it really you? And you're so firm.
Because it seems to me that she is not able to differentiate from the Sam that she has created in her mind and the Sam who has his own needs and wants and wishes, who is right in front of her. And if you think, well, maybe that's not so bad, it gets worse, because a few seasons after she meets him, she drugs him with a love potion and marries him, and tries to sexually assault him. At the end of the episode, the person who was giving her this love potion calls her a loser, obsessed with having a hot piece of arm candy on her shoulder for a 10th high school reunion. And she ends up erring on the side of good, and helps to save Sam, but to me, that doesn't really cover over the fact that her actions were quite literally crimes. And then the other aspect about her that bugs me a lot is she talks a lot about her vibrant sexuality. She implies that at one point that she might have been a little too much woman for Sam. She says that Chuck was intimidated by her sexuality.
I'm not gonna lie. We had undeniable chemistry. But like a monkey on the sun, it was too hot to live. But you left and Chuck dumped me. I think I intimidated him with my vibrant sexuality. Well, I just want someone who loves me for me. Is that too much to ask? What?
If you want somebody to love you for you, maybe don't drug them.
But I want you. And this is the only way.
But it's clear that because all of the characters, and by extension the audience, is supposed to be kind of grossed out by her, it's really played more as kind of a mean joke. Because she thinks it's her sexuality that's intimidating, but really, it's just because everyone thinks she's gross. And I think that she really grinds my gears in a way that the Ghostfacers don't, because her geekiness and the reasons she sucks feel more interconnected. She assaults Sam because she is a fan, because she is so in love with him and obsessed with him and cannot fathom a reality where she doesn't get to have him. When I watched Supernatural in high school, I was like, wow, she's crazy. But then again, I had a cool girl complex, meaning that I served as a reasonable sounding board for all my male friends who wanted to complain about their crazy girlfriends. And I don't think I ever realized that when people hated on teenage girls and the things that they liked, they meant me. But after college, I rewatched the show, and I started to feel more roasted by the character of Becky because I started to realize all the ways that I was similar to her. Like her, I also spent a lot of time looking at pictures of Sam Winchester on my laptop. I felt connected to his character because everyone in his life was also telling him he was a nerd.
I know what I am, okay? I'm a loser. In school, in life. Guess that's why I like you so much. I mean, not that you're a loser, but you had that whole character arc about being a freak, and I can relate.
I also started to feel really defensive over the people that ran fan blogs of Supernatural that I followed religiously, and all the people who made those gift sets that I reblogged constantly. Because these were well-intentioned people, and they were mostly teenagers. And that equivalence, because in the Supernatural universe, Becky is really our only example of a superfan, irks me. So speaking of a show's canonical disdain for its own superfans, Sarah Zed has a great essay about John Locke, which was the ship name for Dr. John Watson and Sherlock in the BBC show. For a quick summary of her thesis that I really liked, basically, at the beginning of the 3rd season, after a years-long hiatus and a massive surge in popularity, after the 2nd season ended on a complete cliffhanger, with Sherlock being presumed dead by everyone, but revealed to be alive, online speculation was rampant about how Sherlock managed to survive. And then, in the 1st episode of the 3rd season, there are people in Sherlock's universe who have spent the last 3 years theorizing about how he could have lived. The most ridiculous involves Sherlock throwing a dummy off of a roof and then kissing Moriarty, which is made by someone who is a fangirl. And when I watched it for the first time, I thought a lot of it was funny, but Sarah Zed makes a really great point in saying that the episode was really just making fun of its own fans. It even ends with a big fuck you in the form of a non-answer. The show does not tell you how Sherlock managed to survive. And it makes all of the people in universe, and by extension, their real-world counterparts, the fans, feel a little stupid for even caring for that long. And it also means that the parallels for Sherlock's biggest fans in universe were crazy conspiracy theorists. And it felt like they were shat on, even though they were the most avid supporters of a 3rd season from the very beginning. She also makes the point that it felt like Stephen Moffat, the show's creator, had a real disdain for the fans that his own show was attracting. And this is nothing new. Lots of media shows outright disdain for teenage girls and women for the things that they like. And I do agree that it feels like Sherlock as a show felt like it was written for a respectable audience, and then the creators didn't know what to do when a bunch of chicks started watching it. And I think that Supernatural had a similar problem. It felt like they used at least Jared Padalecki as a hook to get people watching the show. But even from the original pitches, it's very clear that Supernatural is not a girl show. And Becky, to me, seems like an archetype. The crazy fangirl who doesn't have a life. And while I really don't believe that the writers seem like they are trying to actively make fun of their own fans, Becky is clearly meant to be an extreme, and there are many fans who are presented as normal, reasonable, not criminal people. I don't think they quite realize the equivalence that they're making, because they show normal fans in other episodes, but it also feels like they're saying, you're not crazy, right? You don't believe in the gay stuff, right? And since they had all this attention from such a young, dedicated audience, I really don't think they ever really knew what to do with it. And for the record, I do think they gave it a great college try. They clearly put a lot of effort into honoring their fans, because like I said before, this show has the most fan service of maybe any show that I have ever seen, especially later on. I'm thinking very specifically around seasons 9, 10, which is when they run across a group of high schoolers who have literally written a musical based off of the Supernatural books. They're a little geeky, sure, but they're mainly likable characters, and they're able to teach the brothers a little bit about themselves. But, and this should be noted, that they never for a second think that Sam and Dean are actually real, because only the craziest bitches think that. Right? By the way, I am not saying that fans of Supernatural think that they're real. The fact that Becky believes they are real so quickly, I think does her a disservice, and does any fan who kind of can see themselves in her also a disservice, because that is a silly thing to think. I should also mention that some very early LARPers were treated quite similarly. They were kind of played for laughs at the beginning, but by the end you really understood why they did what they did, and they seemed like lovely, well-adjusted people who just did something a little goofy on their weekends off. And don't we all? I think that also the character of Charlie is a great later season geeky person, because although I think Felicia Day is a great actress, there is also no doubt in my mind that she was cast as both a coder and a LARPer as a fun guest star for the Whedon Girlies. And Felicia Day, please forgive me for further tying your name with that fucking man, but let's be honest, this one was for the Dr. Horrible girlies. I feel like the writers really played into the fans connecting with Dean a lot. By the end of the show, he is the person who, although he is a little shy to admit it, is into LARPing and Taylor Swift. And Sam is the one who kind of nudges him for being weird. So they kind of flip roles in that way. And frankly, I don't think that would have happened if the fans didn't think it was endearing. And also, there is no way to mention fan service without mentioning every single character in the entire show who talks about Dean and Cass being boyfriends or in love or obsessed with each other. So if you somehow are watching this video but don't know, Dean is one of the brothers, Destiel is an angel who becomes their friend, and the ship between Dean and Cass, still to this day, could be one of the most popular ships of all time. And no one else in the show will let Dean and Cass forget it. So while there are so many nods to fans of the show, there is, honestly, at least to my little eyes, only one fangirl. And she sucks. It feels to me like the show is implying that there are strange but acceptable fan behaviors, like writing a musical, LARPing, and unacceptable fan behaviors, like becoming heavily emotionally invested in a character, almost to the point where they feel like a real person. And I think that the fact that Becky is the only person who connects to the characters in Supernatural like that is a disservice to everyone who connected with the characters like that in real life, because they were good fucking characters. Sue us. So while I think the writers definitely had a lot of fun kind of joshing with their fan base, I still don't think they could meet the fans where it counted. So I mentioned that fans wanted Dean and Cass to get together. What I think I forgot to mention is that a lot of fans really wanted Dean and Cass to get together. And furthermore, it felt like every single character in the entire canon of the show knew that Dean and Cass were in love, except for the two of them.
Don't normally see you off leash. Where's your boss? Castiel? Oh, he's not here. You see, he has this weakness. He likes you.
You have me confused with the other angel? You know, the one in the dirty trench coat who's in love with you?
Why's it always gotta be me that makes the call, huh? It's not like Cash lives in my ass. The dude's busy. Cash, get out of my ass.
I was never in your...
I get that these are supposed to be throwaway fan service lines, but also I think that the writers should have realized that sure, they can throw in fan service as much as they want, but it's also bad writing if all of that turns out to not be foreshadowing anything at all. Well, spoilers. Their relationship ends when Cass tells Dean he loves him for the first time, and then immediately gets dragged down into hell. And then it feels like Dean gets over the whole thing very quickly, because let's be honest, the Warner Brothers is still a company. Both the leads had already committed to other projects after Supernatural. So even though this was the conclusion to a 15-year-long show, they had to get this shit out like it was a soap opera. And I'm only making this long tangent because it feels like the writers got so comfortable with doing fan service throughout the whole show, but at the end of it all, couldn't even end the thing with just a little kissy kiss. And I was baffled by that decision before I found some dumb Reddit-ass graph that showed that after all this time, Supernatural was still pretty popular with Democrats and Republicans. And it was like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, oh my god, after all this time, they're still trying to juggle those two audiences, the bros and the hoes. And circling back, I think that Becky is such a great example of how they were comfortable with fans, but not comfortable enough with the super fans and the hardcore fan culture to really commit to the gay stuff. Because Warner Brothers is a company. If Republicans are boycotting their media, it had fucking better be because of the highest grossing movie of the year, or so help them. And I'm not saying I don't think that trepidation is completely unwarranted, because fans were certainly quite something to behold back in those days. And these actors and sometimes showrunners did not sign up to be treated like they were in a boy band well into their 40s. So maybe some of these writers got some unnecessary Twitter heat for choices they made in the show. I'm sure that a lot of the creatives on this show had a lot of experience with fans taking it way too far. And the Becky character, to me, is indicative of fans that take it too far. But without a foil, maybe a person who fangirls over the books and really deeply connects with Dean or Sam or Cass, but respectfully, real superfans only have this fucking creep to relate to. Ironically, I do think that Becky's arc actually mirrors the relationship that a lot of diehard superfans had with the show, because in the last season, just a few episodes before the entire show ends forever, Becky is brought back, and she is revealed to have a husband, children, a successful business selling supernatural-themed merch. She admits what she did to Sam was wrong. She says that she finally respects and loves herself, and then she is immediately killed by the snap of her ex-boyfriend's fingers. And hilariously, I think that that mirrors the fan trajectory of a lot of people who were very into the show. Because like most shows do when they are nearing the end of their run, a lot of fans still cared about the show but stopped watching. They moved on. But then they are brought back just before the finish line to see their ship, the two characters that they loved so intensely. It's not like Cass just died. He told Dean he loved him, and before Dean could even compute a reaction, he immediately died. It's almost like you have moved on with your life, and then the show taps you on the shoulder and reminds you about how much you wanted this thing, and then throwing the thing off of a cliff. So I complained about Becky a lot, but really I do think that we have a lot in common. We both have special interests. Hers is supernatural. Mine is medieval architecture.
You had that whole character arc about being a freak, and I can relate.
And while we were included in the show, it feels like the writers were really never all the way comfortable with us. And we were both reeled back into the franchise at the bitter end, only to be disrespected one last time. Anyway, I really would love to know what you think of the show, if you were a fan, if you got over it, if you're still super, super into it, if you're just getting back into it, and what you think about this character. Does she bug you? Do you not care? Are you like other girls, or are you not? Anyway, yeah, thank you so much as always, and I hope you have a great whatever time of day it is for you. Bye!